Thanks a lot, Mayank. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mayank Shree. I am into supply chain consulting and industry for almost about a decade and a half. I have worked with Big Four in consulting. I have worked with industry, telecom, automotive, consumer durables, and handled quite a large portfolio of procurement as high as $300 million annual purchase, large teams. And what I'm going to share today is little bit what I could sum up in terms of as a procurement leader, whenever you go to market, you have to first of all understand how to peg your price, right? You have to negotiate with the suppliers. So how do you decide on what would be the cost that you're going to finally come up to, and what will be your takeaway price when you before you sign a contract, right? So I'm going to present some of the key methods by which you can arrive at the final price that you're going to settle with the suppliers or the vendors that you deal with. It is applicable not only in the product purchase but also in services, in whichever form that you want to buy from outside your organization. Yeah, thanks a lot, Mayank. And sure. Yeah. So what I'm going to talk about, there's always exceptions. So, there could be few cases in your organization where some of it might not fit in, but I'm like 90% sure most of it would fall in place somewhere or the other. So, I'm going to quickly run through this slide. We all understand the stages of sourcing that goes into it. First, you get the requirement from your user functions, internal customers in your organization. Then you try and go to the market, figure out who all are the probable suppliers for you. You do a early stage technical evaluation of these people. Try to understand what they stand for and how much they are relevant to the requirement that you have. Then you send them a request for proposal, right? That's how it happens in most of the cases. That's where you need the pricing point for you in terms of when you get a product, you should be buying it at particular cost. So that once you internally agree on with your internal stakeholders as to what should be your cost, you go on a negotiation table, and then you sign a contract, and there and so on and so forth. So finally, you have to provide a product or a service at a right cost, right time, right quality in a most sustainable manner. The sustainable manner is also an important key aspect over here. So we are talking about the two steps: RFP, the discovery of price, and then negotiations. I'll quickly run into the methods that are typically being used. First and foremost, benchmarking. Anybody giving you a request to buy, you typically run through within your old database. You typically run through within your own peers in the industry and try to gauge where a product or a service of this sort would fall into, and how much would be a tentative cost for it. So typically, you kind of refer your last purchases, you refer some of the components which you've already bought similarly, right? So if you're buying something which is of a larger scale for what you have bought earlier, you try to gauge the costing from there. Now, this is a very basic technique. It is only to have a back of the envelope calculation for you, but this is not the end of it. This is starting point. And then you kind of go to the market and then ask for quotations from people. These people are going to give you initial budgetary quotes. Before you do the final bid, you try to sense in terms of what range it lies into, and that's how you evaluate your supplier ecosystem in terms of where do they stand, how cost effective they are, and so on and so forth. The next one is a reverse auctioning. I think this is most prevalent method where you list your requirement on a platform. You have an entire database of people who are providing you those services and products, and then they are, kind of bidding it on your platform or on a hired platform. There are different methods in which the reverse auctioning is done. You have a ranked method where your suppliers do not know while they are bidding in terms of what value is the lowest value. They just know they are not number one, they are number three, number four, number five. So they have to go down to the least possible in their budget to be the number one and finally win the contract. That's the most effective method, and that's been most prevalent use. But then there are other methods as well. There's something called Japanese methods, where uh, you have large number of suppliers bidding in for your product or services. So you say something that you want to buy, let's say for 100 dirhams, there are 20 people. So then you lower the price, saying that I would want to buy at 95 will drop out. Now you lower it further to 80, 70, and so on. Lastly, there'll be one or two people with whom you can go and have an across the table negotiation as well. And then there's a Dutch where when you're going to buy large quantities, there's a possibility not single supplier will be able to give you everything. So then you distribute it among two or three into a price range. So while you do not get everything at a lowest possible cost, but you still have some people who are giving you a remaining of the quantities at a marginally higher cost. And the last one is the English one, where people sit in a room and then they bid. That's typically not being used, but it's a method. And then comes the technical method of price discovery, which is a zero-based bottom-up, which talk about you go into each element. So if you are a product organization, you're buying components from outside. Then you say how much manpower is being used to manufacture that equipment, how much machinery, how much processing in terms of water, electricity, and consumables going into the product, and so on and so forth. So a lot of elements goes into it, and then on top of it, the profits and overheads, and the sustainability practices of environment sustainability and social sustainability. You compare the two organizations. One, giving you a little, cost-effective product, but then the practices are not sustainable. They are emitting a lot of pollution, a lot of carbon dioxide being released. Over and above, there's somebody who's giving you marginally at a higher cost, but they're following the sustainable practices. So those are things that you keep in mind before you build in your final peg point to buy. And then there comes the higher order of price discovery, where you actually go and collaborate with your suppliers. You own a part of their company, you do an equity sharing, and then the books are open, and then you do a collaborative purchase agreement. Or you buy a capacity of your supplier. You say, me, to be assured of getting certain quantities per month, per week, per year, I would book 50% of the supplier's capacity, right? Then you, hello? Yeah, then you know what is his fixed cost, and when you're booking 50% capacity, you have to pay for that 50% of the fixed cost, and then pay on the variable as the units produce. So, that's something which goes into the co-ownership method. And the final one on the design-led costing, where you sit with your designers and then you design a product for a cost, right? So there are 5 components going in. The end objective is to achieve a certain function. You think that even if you remove one of the component of the 5, the end objective is met. That's how you kind of develop the costing methodology. You develop the design in a method that final cost is the least possible. The products which are already there, you are selling in the market, but then you have to improvise on the cost. In all those cases, you do something which is called value analysis or value engineering, right? So you sit with your engineering team and then do an optimization of your current design, and then you optimize on the cost and take that engineering back into your supplier ecosystem and ask them to negotiate it further with the reduced spec. While these are the major ways you can discover the prices that you're going to go and negotiate with your suppliers, an important thing is you won't be using it for everything that you do. You'll have to, in different scenarios, you will be using different kind of techniques. So, I'll just quickly run through this slide where, it's a power equation. It's a very simple equation. On the x-axis over here, you see what percentage of your total purchase is a particular service or a component, right? So if you're buying, let's say, $100 million, if some product is costing you overall $15 million or $20 million, that's a significant purchase. It will go on the right side of the x-axis. But something which is less than $1 million would fall into the left side of the axis. So it's a complete, you'll have to peg where your product lies. Similarly, when you're going to buy it from the supplier side, it is going to be a significant or a non-significant sell for them as well, because for a supplier they would be dealing with, let's say, 15 different customers. If you are one of those customers who are part of their significant revenue strategy, then you would fall into the higher side of the y-axis. Now, when it is a significant spend for you and it is a significant revenue for your supplier, you go on the top right box where it is a strategic partnership, and that's where you go into the methods of co-ownership, cost plus kind of things, where you collaboratively decide on a cost and then negotiate at that level. Uh, but when something is not that, or moderately significant or not that significant, but it is significantly higher part of your supplier's revenue, which is the yellow box over here, that's where the ancillary strategy lies. So you would have seen a lot of organization, oil and gas, automotive, engineering, right? They have their ancillary park nearby. Why do they have it? Because of this reason. They have large number of components which they buy from, from a source which is more reliable. Not that every component is very, very critical for them, but they would want to have reliability of the supplies. That's where they are dealing with them, and they do a literally zero-based costing. They will even go to the extent how much they are spending on the stationery. I mean, believe me, that happens. So that's the kind of strategy which is being used in the ancillary kind of sourcing. When you are buying a product which is important for you, it's a significant buy for you, but it may not be significant as a revenue percentage to your supplier. All of us have cars, right? So car has a very important component called fuel injection pump. Not the electric one, the one which is petrol or diesel one. You know, there are suppliers. You would have heard some company called Bosch. Bosch is an organization which is world number one. That's where most of the automotive company lie, the blue box. They they no, none of the companies are significant revenue for them, or very few companies are on the significant revenue of Bosch. They are the leaders. Similarly, Intel, right? So Intel is a supplier to HP, to Lenovo, to a lot of hardware manufacturers. But then they are all the OEMs of laptops. They fall into the blue box, where it is significant for them, may not be that significant to their supplier. The supplier holds a higher power. In all, uh, go into a collaborative mode. So you try and pick the most suitable option from their product catalog, and over a period of time, when you increase your volumes, you try and see, get that product customized to your requirements so that you reduce your cost. Then the final one is the commodity sourcing, is something which is easily available. There are large number of suppliers available. You typically go there and do a reverse auctioning. There'll be people who will be fighting for your product, and you'll get the best price. So while this is the theory, I'll just take one example of, before I move on. So typically over a life cycle, you try to take your purchases on the top two boxes. So because that's where your purchasing power lies, right? You are more, your power equation is on your side at that point. So, I'll take one example in terms of how, I have used in one of my consulting assignments. I was dealing with one of the automotive company which was having some 80 million USD spent on some technology product which is castings. So, just to simple terms, casting is a product which is manufactured by melting the iron and then putting it into a die. and then then you make small or big components for it. So there are three different categories of such products that they were buying in their vehicle. One are small products, just 2-3 kgs in weight. Those are less spend, about 0.5% of their total spend, and there were large number of suppliers. Low tech, everybody can produce them, so there are large number of suppliers to it. Then there's something which is medium tech. While the tech was not that difficult, but what was difficult is a continuous quality. So it's a moderate spend for the organization, but from the supplier side of it, there's still large number of suppliers who can do it, right? 10 is a large number supplier base. You can get them competing for you. And then something which is like an engine block. You would have seen in your cars, right? There's an engine which is a very fairly complex thing. It's a very, very complex thing, and just nobody cannot produce an engine block. You need really high-tech capabilities and experience of decades to actually establish your manufacturing setup to produce an engine block. So while there were 4 suppliers who could do it, but these 4 suppliers also have limited customers. In any country, there will be hardly 3, 4, 5, 6 automotive companies. So for every supplier, each automotive company is a big revenue share. So that's where it's a case where it is a significant purchase for me as an OEM, but it is also a significant percentage of revenue as a supplier. So if I take it in the reverse order, the engine block would actually, I mean, any guesses where it will go? If I want to put these 3 components in the matrix over here, any guesses where the engine block would go? The last one? Yes, you're right. So that's where it will go, because it's a significant purchase for you. It's a significant revenue for your supplier, and that's what companies do. They do a design-led, they do a cost-plus model with their supplier, and they work long-term with these. They at times own part of their of these companies. The second one is on the wheel hub. This is something which is moderately important for the organization in terms of spend, but it is typically high revenue because there are 10 suppliers. They have limited customers, and they would want to take more and more revenue share from you. So typically they would come to you, they would open their books. You can do real zero-based costing with them, and then they can give you the best price, and you can always have a competition through a form of quotations, negotiations based on those quotations, etc. And the final one is or the small components, where there are large number of suppliers. You put them on portal, ask them to come and bid, and then you have a reverse auction, or an intense RFQ, and get your best price over there. So that's how that's a one simple example in terms of how do you use these pricing evaluation techniques to the various product or the services portfolio that you are buying in your organization. That's it from my side. Thank you very much.